Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 1 through chapter 28, verse 26. The word of the Lord came to me. You, son of man, sing a lament for Tyre. Say to Tyre, who sits at the entrance of the sea, merchant to the peoples on many coasts. This is what the sovereign Lord says. O Tyre, you have said, I am perfectly beautiful. Your borders are in the heart of the sea. Your builders have perfected your beauty. They crafted all your planks out of fir trees from Senir. They took a cedar from Lebanon to make your mast. They made your oars from oaks of Bashan. They made your deck with cypresses from the Kittian Isles. Fine linen from Egypt, woven with patterns, was used for your sail to serve as your banner. Blue and purple from the coastlands of Elisha was used for your deck's awning. The leaders of Sidon and Arvad were your rowers. Your skilled men, O Tyre, were your captains. The elders of Gebal and her skilled men were within you, mending cracks. All the ships of the sea and their mariners were within you to trade for your merchandise. Men of Persia, Lud, and Put were in your army, men of war. They hung shield and helmet on you. They gave you splendor. The Arvadites joined your army on your walls all around, and the Gammadites were in your towers. They hung their quivers on your walls all around. They perfected your beauty. Tarshish was your trade partner because of your abundant wealth. They exchanged silver, iron, tin, and lead for your products. Javan, Tubal, and Meshech were your clients. They exchanged slaves and bronze items for your merchandise. Both Beth Togarmah exchanged horses, chargers, and mules for your products. The Dedanites were your clients. Many coastlands were your customers. They paid you with ivory tusks and ebony. Edom was your trade partner because of the abundance of your goods. They exchanged turquoise, purple, embroidered work, fine linen, coral, and rubies for your products. Judah and the land of Israel were your clients. They traded wheat from millet, honey, olive oil, and balm for your merchandise. Damascus was your trade partner because of the abundance of your goods and all your wealth. Wine from Helbon, white wool from Zahar, and casks of wine from Izal. They exchanged for your products. Wrought iron, cassia, and sweet cane were among your merchandise. Dedan was your client in saddlecloths for riding. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar were your trade partners. For lambs, rams, and goats they traded with you. The merchants of Sheba and Ramah engaged in trade with you. They traded the best kinds of spices, along with precious stones and gold for your products. Haran, Kana, Eden, merchants from Sheba, Asher, and Kilmad were your clients. They traded with you choice garments, purple clothes, and embroidered work, and multicolored carpets, bound and reinforced with cords. They were among your merchandise. The ships of Tarshish were the transports for your merchandise. So you were filled and weighed down in the heart of the seas. Your rowers have brought you into surging waters. The east wind has wrecked you in the heart of the seas. Your wealth, products, and merchandise, your sailors and captains, your ships, carpenters, your merchants, and all your fighting men within you, along with all your crew who are in you, will fall into the heart of the sea on the day of your downfall. At the sound of your captain's cry, the waves will surge. They will descend from their ships, all who handled the oar, the sailors and all the sea captains. They will stand on the land. They will lament loudly over you and cry bitterly. They will throw dust on their heads and roll in the ashes. They will tear out their hair because of you and put on sackcloth, and they will weep bitterly over you with intense mourning. As they wail, they will lament over you, chanting, "Who was like Tyre, like a tower in the midst of the sea?" When your products went out from the seas, you satisfied many peoples. With the abundance of your wealth and merchandise, you enriched the kings of the earth. Now you are wrecked by the seas. In the depths of the waters, your merchandise and all your company have sunk along with you. All the inhabitants of the coastlands are shocked at you, and their kings are horribly afraid. Their faces are troubled. The traders among the peoples hiss at you. You have become a horror and will be no more. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Your heart is proud, and you said, I am a god. I sit in the seat of gods, in the heart of the seas. Yet you are a man and not a god, though you think you are godlike. Look, you are wiser than Daniel. No secret is hidden from you. By your wisdom and understanding, you have gained wealth for yourself. You have amassed gold and silver in your treasuries. By your great skill in trade, you have increased your wealth, and your heart is proud because of your wealth. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you think you are godlike, I am about to bring foreigners against you, the most terrifying of nations. They will draw their swords against the grandeur made by your wisdom, and they will defile your splendor. They will bring you down to the pit, and you will die violently in the heart of the seas. Will you still say, I am a god, before the one who kills you, though you are a man and not a god, when you are in the power of those who wound you? You will die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of foreigners, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, sing a lament for the king of Tyre, and say to him, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You are the sealer of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, the ruby, topaz, and emerald, the chrysolite, onyx, and jasper, the sapphire, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mounts were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. I placed you there with an anointed guardian cherub. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked about amidst fiery stones. You were blameless in your behavior from the day you were created, until sin was discovered in you. In the abundance of your trade you were filled with violence, and you sinned. So I defiled you, and banished you from the mountain of God. The guardian cherub expelled you from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom on account of your splendor. I threw you down to the ground. I placed you before kings, that they might see you. By the multitude of your iniquities, through the sinfulness of your trade, you desecrated your sanctuaries. So I drew fire out from within you. It consumed you, and it turned you to ashes on the earth before the eyes of all who saw you. All who know you among the people are shocked at you. You have become terrified, and will be no more. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, turn toward Sidon and prophesy against it. Say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am against you, Sidon, and I will magnify myself in your midst. Then you will know that I am the Lord, when I execute judgments on her and reveal my sovereign power in her. I will send a plague into the city, and bloodshed into its streets. The slain will fall within it, by the sword that attacks it from every side. Then they will know that I am the Lord. No longer will Israel suffer from the sharp briars or painful thorns of all who surrounded and scorned them. Then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. When I regather the house of Israel from the peoples where they are dispersed, I will reveal my sovereign power over them in the sight of the nations, and they will live in their land that I gave to my servant Jacob. They will live securely in it. They will build houses and plant vineyards. They will live securely when I execute my judgments on all those who scorn them and surround them. Then they will know that I am the Lord their God. So you have a prophecy here against Tyre in the first part, and Sidon briefly in the second, where at first Tyre's success in trade and abundance of wealth and trading partners is highlighted, but despite all of that, they were destroyed in the end. Yeah, and then you have this first part of Ezekiel chapter 28, where you have this Prince of Tyre, and he says to himself, Ezekiel says, your heart is proud, and you said, I am a god, I sit in the seat of gods, in the heart of the seas. Yet you are a man and not a god, though you think you are godlike. Um, I know that oftentimes, well, I'm pretty sure it's this passage where oftentimes people have used it as a description of how Satan fell, especially in particular, you have like passages where it says in 28:13, you were in Eden, the garden of God, and that every precious stone was your covering. And you were the sealer of perfection in verse 12, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. And you were blameless in your behavior from the day you were created until sin was discovered in you. So, whether this is about both the king of Tyre and Satan, I'm not sure. But I think it could be about both. Yeah, and David Guzik says, the idea of a prophet speaking to the spiritual ruler or authority behind an earthly ruler is also present in Isaiah 14, where the description of the king of Babylon seems to go beyond any earthly king and describes Satan himself. We also see this idea in Daniel 10, verses 10 through 20, where the angel Michael described his battle with a spiritual opponent he called the Prince of Persia. This chapter in Isaiah 14 throw light on the fall of Satan and indicate that he was a created being who fell through pride. So, interesting. Carrying on, Hebrews 11, 17 through 31. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. He had received the promises, yet he was ready to offer up his only son. God had told him, through Isaac, descendants will carry on your name, and he reasoned that God could even raise him from the dead, and in a sense, he received him back from there. By faith also, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning the future. By faith, Jacob, as he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, and worshipped as he leaned on his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, mentioned the exodus of the sons of Israel and gave instructions about his burial. By faith, when Moses was born, his parents hid him for 3 months because they saw the child was beautiful and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, when he grew up, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be ill-treated with the people of God than to enjoy sin's fleeting pleasure. He regarded abuse suffered for Christ to be greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for his eyes were fixed on the reward. By faith he left Egypt without fearing the king's anger, for he persevered as though he could see the one who is invisible. By faith he kept Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, so that the one who destroyed the firstborn would not touch them. By faith they crossed the Red Sea as if on dry ground, but when the Egyptians tried it, they were swallowed up. By faith the walls of Jericho fell, and the people marched around them for 7 days. By faith Rahab the prostitute escaped the destruction of the disobedient, because she welcomed the spies in peace. Yeah. So you have descriptions of more people who operated by faith. And yeah. And were saved by it. Yeah. Hebrews here adds additional reasoning to the Abrahamic story of Isaac being offered up. In verse 11:19, he reasoned that God could even raise him from the dead, and in a sense, he received him back from there. Yeah, but Abraham was certain that they would both return down the mountain to the servant who escorted them there. So, yeah, he must have been thinking something along those lines. Yeah, and I was just thinking regarding Moses. Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be ill-treated with the people of God than to enjoy sin's fleeting pleasure. He regarded abuse suffered for Christ to be greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for his eyes were fixed on the reward. And I was just thinking how different it would have been if he chose to enjoy sin's fleeting reward. And not that it would have prevented Israel from becoming a nation, but I'm sure salvation would have come through some other person for the Israelites in that case. But how different it would have been for Moses to have thrown in his lot with Pharaoh. So I think it just serves as good encouragement for us to choose to be ill-treated with the people of God rather than to enjoy sin's fleeting pleasure. So, carrying on. Psalm 111, verses 1 through 10. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart in the assembly of the godly and the congregation. The Lord's deeds are great, eagerly awaited by all who desire them. His work is majestic and glorious, and his faithfulness endures forever. He does amazing things that will be remembered. The Lord is merciful and compassionate. He gives food to his faithful followers. He always remembers his covenant. He announced that he would do mighty deeds for his people, giving them a land that belonged to other nations. His acts are characterized by faithfulness and justice. All his precepts are reliable. They are forever firm and should be faithfully and properly carried out. He delivered his people. He ordained that his covenant be observed forever. His name is holy and awesome. To obey the Lord is the fundamental principle for wise living. All who carry out his precepts acquire good moral insight. He will receive praise forever. Yeah. To obey the Lord is the fundamental principle for wise living. All who carry out his precepts acquire good moral insight. Yeah, because they understand that that's the right path. Proverbs chapter 27, verses 15 and 16. A continual dripping on a rainy day and a contentious wife are alike. Whoever hides her hides the wind, or grasps oil with his right hand. I think the NASB translates it as restrains. Restrains her, restrains the wind. Let me see here. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly gives an idea of the indefatigable nature of the contentiousness. So, yeah, that's why it's a good idea to choose your spouse wisely. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great day. Bye.